Right. Tier 2. These are for our kids who, in spite of our classroom teachers' greatest efforts, it's just not enough. They got there because we have hard data to support the notion that the teacher has tried their best and they're just not making the gains that we would expect. It tends to be more specialized. We were chatting earlier about the fact that we have to do a little diagnostic assessment at this point. When someone enters a Tier 2 intervention, it just can't be, let's just try this. We have to do a little diagnostic work to find out why is it that their reading rate isn't as high as ever. What are some of the reasons why someone might have poor reading, measured reading fluency? I ask you to read for a minute, little Billy, and you're reading at half the rate as everyone else. What are some of the varied reasons that could happen?
Your vocabulary, lack of vocabulary.
Yeah, poor vocabulary. I don't know what these darn words mean, so when I come across that word, well, at least I'm thinking about it. That's a good sign. I'm thinking about it, but it doesn't help me any. Okay, poor vocabulary.
Lack of exposure, modeling.
Lack of exposure. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of this reading stuff going on, and now you're asking me to do it. I don't have enough practice with it. Okay, so a youngster with lack of practice and exposure, youngster with reading vocabulary issues, same interventions. Let's put you two guys in a group together, and we'll be fine. And do the same thing, right? No. We have to figure out diagnostically what's wrong. We're going to do two very different things with those two kids. One is going to have an intervention to expand their vocabulary. Another is going to let them practice reading. That's what it takes. Practice, practice. That's the adage. That's what. Other reasons. What else? My kids have poor reading fluency.
Phonological awareness skills.
Yeah. Phonological awareness issues, decoding issues. You know, we have to figure out which is it. What's contributed? It could be multiple, could be single. That's where the diagnostic piece comes in at this point. And then we put our plan in place. It can't be random, and it can't be, well, this is the program we purchased last year, and Mrs. Jones got trained in it, so everyone gets this program. That's not the approach. It's the approach, okay, what is, based on our assessment, what do they need?
So when you give this test to a grade 2 student, do you give the grade 2 test? Or do you move them back to grade 1 if they weren't successful with the grade 2 test and go from there?
Okay. You're okay.
I'm just wondering how.
No, that's a great question. You hit this. You're asking the 3-day session questions. Okay. Remember how we threw those green lines that went down? 3 times a year we're going to benchmark kids.
Right.
On those benchmarks, you use grade level tests, assessments. So if the youngster's in the 3rd grade, you use because we want to see, are you on your way to becoming a 3rd grade average reader? Right. However, suppose there's a way in AIMSweb, what you do is you administer the 3rd grade one passage, then you administer a 2nd grade passage, and then you administer a 1st grade passage. Okay. And then you click on this button, and it tells you which passage is at the youngster's instructional level. Okay. Then that's the grade level that you progress monitor at. Okay. Now, why does that make sense? Well, why do we do that?
You're building on success and
yes.
confidence.
And we're gonna be more readily be able to see growth. If I give you something that's hard as hell, no matter, even though you're working hard, it's always going to be hard as hell, and I'm not going to see the growth. But if I'm getting something on an instructional level, I'm getting better. I'm going to get better on that. So we do that for kids who are significantly below, but we also always benchmark 1, 2, 3 on grade level, so we don't lose sight of the fact that we want them to be average readers. All right. In general, and these recommendations are based on that 20 years of research and manipulating how do we get the best outcomes for kids. That these supplemental services tend to be 30 minutes tends to be optimal. For a number of reasons. Biggest one being, 30 minutes, 20, this is significant instruction. And how many of you want to be engaged in an intense task for 30 minutes where you're on focus and so clearly you get the best results if it only lasts about 10 minutes, if they're small group again. Small group instruction was more effective than one-on-one instruction. And here's the big part. It's happening in addition to what you already got from your classroom teacher. And this level, it's recommended that your doing weekly progress monitoring, because this is a fairly labor-intensive and important intervention. You want to make sure that you're getting the result you would hope. Again, it only takes 1 minute to do this intervention, so you set up a schedule. And that's when, every Friday, every Monday, whenever it is, that's how we start our group. Here's our 1-minute test, and then you deal with the data. And typically, unless you have a classroom teacher who I described before, the one with high teacher willingness and has a classroom where she can get a number of groups working independently well. That aside, usually it's some other professional who's doing it. One of the things that often happens is it's oftentimes a paraprofessional who's trained in a particular program. What elements of RTI can help us monitor the fact that a youngster might be getting support from someone who is not a licensed teacher? And we want to make sure that things are going accordingly. So which of our little puzzle pieces addresses that? What about that fidelity and integrity piece that we're gonna zip in, and it's agreed upon? And that's the important thing. As you discussed things earlier, it's how would you feel if someone showed up and had a little check sheet? You agree upon it with the person. Okay, this is important for kids to learn that we do this in the appropriate fashion. I'm going to provide you training on how to do this. When I'm confident you know how to do this effectively, you're going to be set loose on kids and be able to impact their lives, and the world's going to be wonderful. But I'm going to check in once in a while just to make sure things are okay. And I'm going to let you know when I'm coming. And we sit down and we do it, and then we review what happened. So that's how we deal with the whole notion that sometimes, I don't know about here, but down south, some of our most intense kids are provided support and interventions by our least trained individuals.